Hey, I'm Dave. I'm Underdog's creative director. It's going to be a couple of weeks before we get a brief and proper like details for King and like an audition and all that. So I'm thinking I just do like a video to explain in a couple of minutes what this like gig is and who King is and what his part in the game is. So I don't know if you watched the pitch, the deck we sent, but we're doing a mech fighting game in VR, right? So you play this guy called Rig. A lot of the game, you're sitting inside a mech. It's connected to your arms. It has these giant robot arms outside, and you're fighting in this arena, basically for the entertainment of the crowd, fighting other enemy mechs and robots and shit. And the mech is kind of doing everything you're doing. So you're smashing shit, and you can replace your arms with chainsaws and grabbers and all sorts of shit like that. It's a cool fucking game. Now, the story is that the guy called Rig, right, and his brother King, who grew up in London, arrive at this city called New Bracca, out in Africa, and it's kind of this giant prison city, and it's the mecca of mech fights, so to speak. That's like where the heavy shit is happening, like the real fights, the real like hardcore scene. The whole scene is kind of this underground, like criminal, super violent, super dirty, super dark scene, like lots of gambling and lots of politics and lots of like violence around it and all that kind of shit. Now these two brothers, they're super close, right? Rig, the guy the player plays, is the older brother. He's 28, and King is 24, I think, if I remember correctly. Originally it was called Kenny. At age 9, he decided everyone should be calling him King, and he had his big brother to help him enforce that, right? And while Rig, the guy the player plays, is just kind of this, basically a fighter, right? He likes being physical. He's an aggressive guy. He doesn't really get the flight part of fight or flight. And King, on the other side, he's a hustler. He's like, he socializes with people. He makes connections. He takes supply from one side, finds demand on the other side. He makes things go around, right? He's sharp. He has a sharp tongue. He can talk himself out of most situations, and the situations he can't talk himself out of, his brother helps him with. And while Rig is in the arena fighting, King does two things for him. First of all, he's his like manager. He sets up the fights. He sets up the pay. He sets up the enemies. He sets up all that kind of shit. And the other thing is that he's got his corner. So basically, throughout the game, you have King in your ear, kind of narrating what's happening, giving you heads up about things you might not be noticing, cheering you on, kind of helping you feel what's happening in the game. So simple things could be just like King shouting out behind you, right? Or get the fuck out of there. More complicated things could be like explaining to you things like, man, those alpha dogs are making the entire dogs act like a pack. If you get them out first, you'll have an easier time, right? So it's kind of a half tutorial kind of kind of sentence. And then there's just going to be a lot of like cheering on, like that's how we fucking do it in the basics, bitch, you know, and the fuck yeah, and that one's gone, he got, and all that kind of like just giving you like a nice vibe to everything that's happening in the game while you're playing. Not like an announcer, but he's kind of like on your side, right? Yeah, now King is the only voice acting we have in the game. Everything else in the game is in text, like in a comic book style graphic. And so he really goes a long way. He should really go a long way in kind of giving you the right vibe and the right attitude and the right kind of personality. It really is going to color the game a lot. So we were looking for a voice actor for a long time. And we're listening to a lot of people online, probably, I don't know, several dozens, I would say, probably more. And it came down to you and another guy. And I actually think, from what I heard with you, like the diversity of like the different characters that you embody and the few samples that I heard was a lot like wider and seemed seemed quite good and gave me a good feeling that together we could find this character, because we have something very specific we're looking for. And while it's not that difficult to find someone with the right voice, it's a bit more difficult to find someone who can kind of embody the right personality traits and kind of, you know, get that. On the one side, there's something kind of slow and confident and a bit gangster and stoic about him, and on the other side, there's something snappy and kind of sharp and in your face about him. Yeah, you know, on the one side, he's just kind of a hustler making things happen. On the other hand, he can really hold his own weight. So there's a lot of figuring out there that I feel that we'll only be able to do with someone who's actually like a good actor. So yeah, that's my rundown. I hope this is interesting to you. And if it is, I'd love to get going. We're going to have a brief in a couple of weeks with some lines and some context. And hopefully we can do it like a test. And just like do a short, I guess audition is maybe the word, and then we can see how that goes. So yeah, hopefully this helps you make a decision if you're interested or not, and I guess we'll take it up with Lizzie from here. Thank you.